Clearly, we've all been hearing a lot about AI and generative AI. And I'd like to say if there's hope for these Gen AI applications that we all have on our plate, at the end of the day, it's really in these data platforms that we already have or we already should have had. Hey everybody, my name is Lester Martin. I'm from Starburst. I lead our DevRel function and been around the block for some time. I spent the last 10, 15 years though in this big data, open source, data analytics space that I think of. That probably a lot of terms that a lot of us know. Now, back to the real topic here, and I would say we're hearing a lot of pressure. We're hearing a lot of things. We're feeling a lot of pressure about being successful, save money, all these things with Gen AI. But some of us are just, still trying to figure it out. And if that's you, don't panic. You got some time. I know. I was there last year, and I had that, and I spent the last year feeling like I'm in imposter syndrome, trying to understand this. This stuff is new, and it's changing very, very fast. But at the end of the day, there's no reason that we can't go ahead and lean into it and see how it's going to impact us, because everyone will continue to say AI over and over and over for some time, even if you want to explode inside sometimes. But that's just part of it. But you might ask, why? Why? Why are we continuing to talk about all this AI and Gen AI? Well, the reason we're talking about it is pretty obvious. We want to make some money, or we want to save some money. So we're looking for some enterprise impacts and benefits that can help us do all those things. What are some of those? Well, generative AI. I think a lot of us can watch the news and find images that people send us and see all kinds of made up things. So generative AI could create stuff, create people doing things that we never imagined. So the Hollywoods of the world are thinking about this stuff, but just average creators. My son spends his $20 a month and unfortunately makes all kinds of images all day. Good for him. But if we think about our businesses, absolutely, just like Hollywood could use this, marketing teams can use this to build their videos, their audio, their materials they want to get out there. The folks in the AEs and the SDRs, they're looking to acquire new customers or maybe grow prospects into full-on customers, however it is, or you can go to new customers. They're looking for new material scripts, or looking for messages to send out, all kinds of good stuff. Often we need to send our customers information across the board, tell them about a new feature, a new update, worse yet, maybe a new issue, those kinds of things. We can look to AI to help us craft those messages and get them out there. But probably the thing that you've all heard a lot about, or at least at the Cursory heard a lot about, is this notion of things like vibe coding, software, building software. We don't need programmers anymore. Lots of good extravagant should or shouldn't, could or wouldn't, where we'll be in this space for software developers in the next 6 months to year or two. We'll see. But I will say for sure that the Gen AI tools, the LLMs, have really come to bear and really do offer features and make us change how we attack software development. They're definitely a space. But we're also looking for just generic or general business-oriented kind of automation activities. Maybe get a bunch of docs in from processing, and can we, if it's a human involved doing all these steps, making decisions and that kind of stuff all in the flow, those are great examples. IT, getting support cases and helping out with that. That could be people coming in with questions. That could be just rolling out, making updates and patches and all those kinds of things that we think about. Same thing with the legal and compliance stuff. But I think the meeting summarization that Zoom is doing, a little plug for them, is incredible. Writes better messages, incredibly captures every single action item, puts them all in one little section. I've been blown away about how really good that has become. And if programmers are a little worried, I would say absolutely, say worried, because, AI is scary and exciting all at the same time. So data analysts are definitely are considering and seeing how this Gen AI space is going to impact them. I think for those that'll be still in this space, it's going to make them much more faster, more productive, more interesting about what they can pull together and find things. And they're still going to use their skills, just like the programmers, to even go further. But you definitely use these tools to jumpstart them. And it's even as much on analyzing the data itself, the pipelining of information, looking for problems, finding issues, enriching, cleansing, all that kind of activities. And by having even better data and more confidence in it, and the software controlling that, the software has a great opportunity to go further and build us some really good test data. So data that's not just syntactically correct by data types and stuff. It has contextual representations. These amount of customers ought to have this amount of orders and this kind of pattern. So by looking at real data, we can build. We can look to AI to help us build even more interesting test data. And if I only said one word, chatbot, I think a lot of folks would go, yeah, that's right, we're doing that. Absolutely. In that notion of, and I'm not limiting this to chatbots, but in that notion of customers are talking to us, they're asking about information, how do we get information right, good, accurate, useful, relevant information back to them and save some money? Are we going to have humans in the mix? We absolutely are. We're going to have those tiers of control, level 1, 2, 3 kind of stuff. Folks are looking over shoulders. Definitely, we're going to look over the shoulders of the chatbots for the foreseeable future as well. So, what am I really trying to pitch? What was the topic of my whole message here? That it really is, hey, if AI is going to be good, it's only going to be good, I guess you could say, if we have access to all the data you have, everything you have. And you want to look to a data platform. You want to look at a data platform ideally that you already have. You bought it, you assembled it, you built it from scratch, whatever it is. And you want that platform, like the one I work for, to be able to access all the data you got, whatever kind of data it is, wherever it lives, whatever technology, whatever format, and bring it under one roof. That data we're talking about, and I broke into kind of two pieces color coding wise. This kind of on the left is publicly available general knowledge kind of stuff, and then this stuff that we hold on to in these data platforms. So again, far left, general knowledge, the internet, all this information that's out there, the models that we have today, the GPT-4s, Llamas, Claude, all the good stuff. What have they done? They've gone out there and they've consumed this information. They've trained themselves. They made themselves more useful models. Based on that, took a little time, a little money to do that. And then on the other side of stuff, GenAI needs, if it's going to be successful for your business, to help you save money and have customer satisfaction and all these things, you need to make sure your GenAI can access intelligently, under controls, all that good stuff. Your far right stuff, your tabular, the data sets in those tables you've been building, refining, and cultivating for years for now. You want to access that. And then probably new to the data platforms, are relatively new, is the notion of, hey, should we tap into those unstructured docs, those Word files and PowerPoints and presentations and spreadsheets and all that good stuff that are out there on SharePoints and Google Drives and all over the place. And could we bring that and start to either keep that under control or use that to extract it, transform it, load it, make it useful for GenAI? We need a little bit of both in there. And, I think as we talk about that unstructured, it'll actually help us think about the term that's been out there for some time, RAG, this retrieval augmented generation. I've kind of put the early days. I think for a lot of folks, RAG is probably about a year or 3 old. I think the term is about 4 years old after I did a little bit of research. But what are we talking about when we say RAG? We're saying that LLM model, that chat agent that we all know and love and pay $20 a month and get access to, well, it only knows the information that's out there that everyone has access to. It doesn't know your corporate information, your enterprise information. That's a good thing, because if it knew it, then everyone knows it. So we want to be careful here. And what we're thinking about with the RAG application is, could I couple a large language model and additional information I have to come together in this notion of a RAG application? Now that I'll explain a little bit more in a few seconds here, to put good answers back out to customers. So for us to do that, though, we do have to kind of think about what are we talking about here? What are we talking about when we say augmenting and etc.? So if I go back one, what we're saying is get some information from my data platform based on the question or request coming in and augment, prompt it, say, hey, large language model, here's my question for my customer, but here's some additional context that you might not know, but I'm giving it to you now to help you make a good decision. And for us to find that, and I'm really talking about unstructured here. It's a different story when it's in our tables. We're looking for AI to be able to walk through that, see the metadata, start to be intelligent about leveraging and querying existing data, and that's critically important. We spend a lot of time getting that data there. But as we look at the textual and the unstructured docs here, what we have to find out is we have to actually take those docs and break them apart, etc. And then inside the docs, we're going to piecemeal them. We're going to break them into chunks or little sections or whatever. Hopefully the doc already has some indicators, some humanly acceptable, computer vision can emulate kind of what we do by looking at things and saying, this is a section, this is a header, this is a paragraph. So we're going to look for the system to kind of break them in these chunks. So these text strings, let's just say a paragraph or two together. And what I'm trying to show you on the screen is if you imagine each one of these words out there are maybe a chunk of text, a whole section or a paragraph. And what happens is we have to create this notion, we have to make it embeddings. We have to create embeddings on a piece of text. And when we create embeddings, what is it doing? It's running through a mathematical model. It's creating some multi-dimensional list of, in all reality, of several thousand numbers, usually -1 to 1 each. And that is a representation that we can put in. If there are several thousands, we're talking about several thousands of dimensions. I'm showing a 3-dimensional kind of X, Y, and Z kind of space here. What we're going to do is imagine, if it was a 3-dimensional, it's kind of easy to see it, but if it's 1,000 dimensions, it might be hard for our brains to see it. But what we're going to do is we're going to put that information, that vector, out in that multi-dimensional space. And by doing that, the system can see things that clump together nicely, just like a sandwich and a hamburger, very similar, 2 pieces of bread, something in the middle. But it also noticed that something like a hot dog, let me just say it again, these are words. It would work with words, but we're trying to imagine what if they were like chunks of data, and we're trying to find similarities. So the hot dog is definitely something to eat, maybe not quite the same as a sandwich or hamburger, which are still not the same, but they're close together. And you see that on the other 2 big examples. The bottom, vehicles, maybe humanly powered or mechanically powered. On the far left, you see kind of living creatures. Obviously, man and woman are a little more closely clumped together. Monkey, okay, kind of similar. And yet maybe a cat or even a turtle might be even further away, mammals, reptiles, all that good stuff. So what is it really trying to say? It's we're taking textual information, turning it into some kind of mathematical representation that lives in a multi-dimensional space, creates like a vector, so that later when we want to search for things that are similar, we can do the same thing. We can take our new set of information, our new string of information, embed it, and then ask an engine that stores these, hey, find me other similar sets of strings, sets of text that look a little bit like this that might help me do something useful. Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot of going on there. I would say that what you have to do all this stuff, you have to go back and just start talking about your unstructured data again. And we do have to build a pipeline here. We have to think about it, and we're actually going to use ETL mostly instead of ELT on this one. We're back to ETL here. We're going to extract our doc from our structured, something like SharePoint. We're going to break those docs. We're going to parse them. We're going to make sure that they come together and look like maybe a JSON document with all the text in there. So we have to convert graphics. We have to apply computer vision. We have to take tables and make the textual representations. So we build a big, long, basically text doc of whatever your doc is. We break it into those chunks, those pieces, usually by, a good example is semantics, so like sections and that kind of stuff. And then on those chunks, we're going to create those weird multi-dimensional embeddings, and then we're going to persist those in some kind of vector repository, vector database, or something that can store those embedding vectors. And if we do all that, so that's our unstructured side of the house, then we can build that RAG application. We can say, hey, customer comes in, asks a question, our application says, let me turn that information, let me use that embedding model, create a mathematical representation of what it's going to ask for. Let me go off to that vector database and say, find me other vectors that are similar to this, other embeddings, and that's going to determine those chunks that live together. It won't look at the text. It's looking at those mathematical representations and compare them. Once we find ones that compare well, we do have to retrieve the textual information that goes with it. Likely could live right there in the vector database. It may be a pointer, whatever. Bring that back to the application, and then we can say, hey, my LLM, knowing this, with this context, help me answer this question. With this retrieved context here, I'm augmenting my prompt and asking you to find a better answer. And then we can ultimately supply that back to the customer. I'm making all that look kind of simple, including the notion of what is an embedding. But it's worth, if you haven't explored this, it's worth taking some time and getting a grasp on this, because this is something that's out there. It is kind of the baseline of where we kind of get started in this Gen AI space. But the reality is we're going past that already. Plenty of good going to production, plenty good proof of concepts in flight in the RAG space. But if we had to look for a word that people are using a lot now, it's this word agent or agentic systems. And it's really talking about reasoning and autonomy. It's kind of the goal here. There we said we built a piece of software. It's almost pretty easy to kind of imagine conceptually. Here we're actually trying to say, hey, how can I build an agent that does something and can make decisions either by itself or offer us back feedback? And what are we talking about here? Or what are the terms? Again, AI agents, agentic workflows, model context protocol. MCP is a really popular one that's getting a lot of traction or conversation right now. There's going to be more that happens in here. This is RAG is pretty easy to conceptualize. Maybe not easy to make it all work perfectly, but easy to conceptualize. We understand how our organizational information is going to be useful to that RAG. But in this space, it's like I said, the tools are evolving pretty regularly. But primarily, we're thinking people are using Python or low code or combination of low no code tools with programming. And instead of pure on complete reason and autonomy, we're still getting there. We're introducing concepts of memory and all kinds of really neat things. But at the end of the day, all of these agents, it's fair to think of them as some kind of workflow element. They're not just some person that can solve any and all problems. They're an agent. They do things. Hey, we're at a conference. Imagine an AI agent that you could use as a conference coordinator that says, hey, my piece of software, my agent, help me. I need to organize a conference. I'd like to keep it in New York City. I'm going to have about this number of people, these kinds of topics over this amount of days. I want to provide meals. You can present it with a lot of information and say, help me out here, see what you can do. And we're looking to that AI agent to do as much of that information it can, much of those solutions, reserve venues, order menus, all that good stuff. And we either can let it be full-on autonomous or just as much offering up feedback. Hey, what about this? Giving us the decision points still, but at least doing the nuts and bolts for us in there. And then again, applying reasoning, look at prices, comparisons, look at it, flexibility and menu options and those kinds of things. And this, as I said, is the new frontier. There's a lot of work here. So when I said, is there hope in these applications? There's hard work in these applications, but they're still built on using the data that you have, the interfaces you're understanding. And without them, we are going to be lost. We're not going to be successful. So in this space, I'm not picking or endorsing on any tools, frameworks, etc. I really want to talk about the data platform, but this might be an example of something that you could look at and say, if you walk over some shoulder, your AI engineer to see what they're doing, or if have them share their screen, you might see something that looks like this. You might also look like they're in their coding development environment as well. So at the end of the day, again, for these data platforms to be successful, we need access to the data. You need to be looking to your data platforms to give that access to fuel these AI applications themselves. Cool buzzword, rocket fuel for AI. And it's fair to say that the problems, the generic problems, the general purpose AI problems that are out there, getting to that data access, because if we can't find it, we can't use it, we can't train our models, all that good stuff. If we can't collaborate easily and well on that, then ultimately we may not get quite the the win that we were hoping for. So looking tools that help us with data collaboration, we're looking for frameworks and platforms also absolutely to help us in governance. That's the reason we don't have all this stuff in the public space anyway, where the LLMs realize that we need to govern and control that information, not just so it doesn't get back out, but so that the right people in the company can use it. The right answers can or can't go back direct to their customers or partners. Do we need to do redact things? All that kind of good stuff. All those definitions need to be solved. And the truth is, all those problems are the problems that these data platforms that you have or should have were really built to address in the first place here. The data access space, we want tools that can do federation across the data lake, the data warehouse, your search engines, your unstructured data, all that good stuff from ingest, but consume all that information in one tool. And by having that, you've already got a large step toward collaboration by people using the same data sets or using a tool that gets at them the same way. They actually can start mentioning, sharing, discussion. And this might be the scenario where you think about something we call data products, kind of an overused term, but a place where you can put your curated data sets and maybe start driving your AI to use that and the collaboration that you can bring with it, the use cases, the additional information, the linking to the other things, all that additional information that you use as a human to collaborate on data is going to extremely help these AI agents because they're reading that, they're understanding, they're using things and trying to think like you do as well. And then absolutely governance, we talked about that. And this isn't just base security as I kind of suggested. This is absolutely going to be things like masking and controlling of who sees and what sees. So maybe it can give an answer as long as you take these particular details out, etc. And if you look across the board, I would say that all these categories for AI, the AI platforms and the AI solutions need data platforms, they need model platforms, they need developer platforms. I'm going to focus on the far left, the stuff in the middle and the right there. We're looking for lots of other vendors. Again, this is not easy stuff. There is work to do here. I didn't say it was going to be easy and you need a data platform. I said to be successful. To be successful in this space, you need a good, solid data platform. You still have a good chunk of work ahead of you. I don't want to suggest that. And you need to look to your data platforms to make sure they have things like integrations with LLMs, embedding models, access to maybe even control who can see and use particular models that you have. And those models could be on-prem, and they can be in the cloud, and control them with gates and that kind of good stuff. And you would look for these systems probably even to go one step further and just build you at least an AI chatbot or agent in a box kind of thing. So at least lightweight, customizable, maybe not try to represent all those other spaces from the developer space that creates the most elaborate thing, but let you do a first pass, something that might actually be the basis of your production systems. And you'd look to these data platforms to use AI themselves when they're looking at data, how to build schemas, how to classify information by looking at data types and putting tags so we can use attribute-based access control, etc., lock it down. But completely and for sure, look for these platforms to offer some kind of chat-ish interface about looking for and helping you find information, all that good stuff, and using all that stuff we said, all that security and all that collaboration, etc. And what am I really mean at the end of the day? I mean bring that world of AI, or at least the interacting with the nuts and bolts world of AI, bring a SQL interface. So we don't only have Python-based or kind of drag and drop tools. We got folks that have used SQL, starting to think about what else can I do with it here? And this is a quick example here that just suggests across the top, we're saying, hey, let's do a retrieval. Let's go look to our support tickets table. We have a question. Let's take that question, create an embedding from it, then look in our table itself. That should store some vectors as well and say, hey, find similar chunks of information or similar vectors, hand that back to me. From that, what I'm really going to do is say, hey, I'm going to augment the prompt. I'm going to say, hey, my LLM, using this, answer me this question and use this information I just retrieved as some additional context. And then ultimately what I'm showing there is, hey, just have that answer back. So you should be able to build with your data platforms, at least a RAG-based application really, really quickly. Again, a lot of work to make that look good, but a human could sit there and build this application here right there in their notebook, right there in their SQL editor of choice. And lastly, I think I'm out of time now. I would say definitely if your data platform that you built, that you bought, that you assembled, whatever it is, make sure that you have thought of, or your vendor has thought about, making sure we're well past data analytics, or well into that prediction space. What are we solving for tools like machine learning, and looking ahead, like we just talked about here, how do you help power those AI agents so we can all be successful in our GenAI projects? Because at the end of the day, your data is only going to be as good, your AI is going to only be as good as the data it has access to. The data platforms like Starburst have access to all of it. I appreciate your time. Thank you.